Across the Fence, the story of a landmark Vermont farm and farm stand that's under new ownership. We'll learn how the change occurred and why the issue of transferring farms like this one is critical to the future of agriculture. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Transferring a farm business to the next generation or from one person to another is a challenging task. There are legal matters and tax laws as well as communication issues and personal differences that both the seller and the buyer need to navigate and negotiate. As part of our ongoing series of programs on transferring the farm, we look at the transfer of a well-known farm in Rutland County. Across the Fence's Keith Silva has the story.
The name on the barn is more than a sign. It's a legacy of success.
The farm had been in the Wood family since 1890. The farm stand in its early incarnation was restaurant and also cabins where places used to come and stay from the big city of Rutland.
John Satz is the first person not named Wood to own Wood's Market Garden in Brandon. Satz bought the farm from Bob and Sally Wood.
When we were sitting at the negotiating table, i.e. the kitchen table, and talking with Bob about I think it was how to allocate funds and things on the contract, and I asked him point blank. I asked him, I said, Bob, are you okay with me keeping the name Wood's Market Garden? I remember Bob saying to Sally, she'd walked in the kitchen not long after, and she said, Sally, what do you think about John keeping the farm name Wood's Market Garden? And Sally, without a pause, just turned around and said, well, if he can keep up the quality, sure, that would be great. And I think it said volumes to them wanting to see it continue, and yet, you know, the strength of what they felt quality of their products was really foremost on their minds.
Satz got to know Bob and Sally a few years before asking them about buying their business. But before he could do that, he had to convince himself.
When I first encountered the farm, I said, wow, this is great, this is fantastic, but boy, this is a lot more than I'm looking to spend or able to even borrow right now. It is really kind of where I want. It was ironic to me. It was where I would like to be in 10 or 20 years. And looking at different farms, I realized there's a lot of different advantages and disadvantages to every property, but it took some time, and it took some whittling away one by one of a property, why it would work, why it wouldn't work, and it basically came up to why it wouldn't work. And when I got here, I think I almost wanted to say why it wouldn't work, and it got to the point where, like, you're nuts. This is everything I've been looking for. How do we make it work?
So how many acres do you have here altogether?
The farm's about 150 acres.
Bob Parsons is an agricultural economist with University of Vermont Extension.
Most people that are looking to try to get into a farm business are just like John. They don't have any equity. They don't have a big cash, and they don't have rich parents, and if you don't have that combination, it's pretty hard to get started into farming.
In his initial attempts to get financing, Satz discovered traditional lenders like banks were a roadblock.
The business itself wasn't worth anything to a bank. When I talked to a couple banks, there wasn't really necessarily a lot of assets. Banks don't look at a business necessarily as assets. I didn't have customers or inventoried accounts. But I, as a grower, knew there's nothing more valuable than a reputation, which was incredibly positive with the way Bob and Sally ran this business for so many years and the quality of their product that they were putting out. So even though it didn't have a value to the bank, to me it was a no-brainer how much that added toward the viability of the business.
Satz took what he calls a three-legged stool approach to finance his purchase. The Vermont Community Loan Fund was willing to be more flexible with financing than the banks. Satz used funds from the Lotta Crabtree Foundation, which gives money for ag businesses to University of Massachusetts alumni. But it was a third investor that would secure this property in perpetuity.
And then the third leg is without a doubt the Vermont Land Trust, which without them, none of it would have been possible either. And it was an easement sale simultaneously when we were going through a closing with Bob and Sally. So I was able to sell the development rights on the farm, and that, as much as anything, made it happen.
Before the farm was sold, Satz put up greenhouses to prepare for his first season. His willingness to invest in infrastructure demonstrates the faith he had in the sellers, and in turn, the trust the sellers had in their buyer.
Bob and Sally were phenomenal. I can't give them enough credit. I felt like it was still a family farm, that they had just made that step to kind of hand it over. And they were there with a helping hand and advice, but never so forceful in my face. They let me walk off a cliff a couple times, and they were busy in their own lives too, so it wasn't like they had nothing else to do. If I'd started from scratch, the business would have, I'm sure, gone in a different direction than it is now. But to have started from where they had it, I had to respect that and be open to that to keep going.
Few farm transfers are as fortuitous or as smooth as the sale of Woods Market Garden. As an agricultural economist, Parsons takes a more practical approach to good fortune.
Somebody will say, they were lucky, all the moons and stars just lined up right at the right time. That seldom happens. What we had here is somebody that was prepared. The owners, they were deciding to get out of the business, but they really wanted to preserve the name that's part of their community. It wasn't just like, well, we're going to cash in and walk away. It takes a lot of character for somebody that has been boss for all these years to actually come down and see someone else running his business differently than what he did. And just giving a little bit of advice, knowing when to give the advice and when to shut up, too.
To keep his business sustainable, Satz has made investments in green energy technologies, new ways to continue a tradition of farming that's been going on here for over a century.
I think everybody who has an energy-intensive business looks at the cost. You can't avoid that. You're writing the checks. It's not just necessarily that it's alternative energies, it's energies that hopefully will make sense over the long run. We've taken the opportunity to track down some grants that kind of helped us do some experiments. So our boiler and our greenhouse has been helped a lot with the USDA CIG grant. The solar panels, I think it's just something that kind of a no-brainer. At this situation in time, there's people who are out there willing to make the capital investments. We just have a PPA, power purchase agreement, on those. So those are something that we don't have a penny into. They're up, they're running, we get a discount on our electric bill, and we have the opportunity to buy that infrastructure back in about 5 to 10 years. So we'd like to see that contribute to the farm and have some healthy alternatives for the future, certainly.
The legacy of Woods Market Garden didn't occur by chance. It took hard work, determination, and a willingness to see things through. It's what happens when preparation meets opportunity. In other words, it's a sign of success. In Brandon, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, joining me here in the studio is UVM Extension agricultural economist Bob Parsons. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, Judy.
Why is the issue of farm transfers so important?
Well, it's complex in our area here, and that is more and more assets of our farms are wrapped up in the ownership of older generation. The average age of farmer in the U.S. has risen from mid-40s in around 1980 to it's approaching age 60 today. We have more farmers over age 65 than what we have under 35. And here in Vermont, we have a lot of young people that would like to get into farming. And that makes it difficult because they're trying to look for land, and generally they don't have assets. And it still comes down to the easiest way to get into farming today is either to marry it or inherit it.
And so is a farm transfer between non-family members in some ways easier to navigate than a family transfer?
It's difficult in the way that you have to find the opportunity. In some ways it's easier because people will talk about business issues that weren't brought up in a family discussion sometimes, because you just think things will work out because we're family. And whenever it's not family, people are more likely to bring up some real touchy issues that we have to address here at some point.
So the key is to find someone who is ready to sell and someone who's ready to buy and has the flexibility to work out the financing, which is like a huge
Well, we have a
deal.
lot of farms, whether they're dairy farms or vegetable farms or other operations across the state, a lot of original organic farms coming up, that the owners have to realize that maybe their children aren't interested in carrying on the operation. And this does provide an opportunity for a younger person to maybe work into that operation. And where it benefits both is it can provide income and maybe part-time employment for the one that's kind of phasing out, and also provide a fantastic opportunity for somebody who wants to get into the business who otherwise has no opportunities or cash or ability to get that initial first step to get into the farming business.
What advice do you have for young farmers who are in the position like John when looking for a farm to purchase?
Well, one of the big things is you have to be kind of prepared, and you have to look around and don't say, well, I'm looking for a situation that's blue, it's got to be perfect blue, and it's got to be perfect the shape. In the case of what John went through here, he first looked at this farm whenever it was first for sale, and he goes, no, I can't do this. But he had been looking for opportunities for several years. And then he came back to look at it, and then he finally took a little bit different mindset and goes, well, can I make this work? And here's where the term that we use in here, success is where opportunity meets preparation. You've got to be prepared to jump at an opportunity when it arises, but you've got to be able to recognize the opportunity and see what you can make from it. I've heard a saying one time that opportunity only knocks, it doesn't kick the door down to get your attention.
Right.
So you need to be ready to jump, but you have to know what you can do, and also know when to take the opportunity, and also know when to walk away if it doesn't look like it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. A little overwhelming. John even said he saw the operation, said that's where I want to be in 10 years, but right now?
Right, and he had been looking around for 7 years, and finally it occurred to him. He goes, he had been small farming, he had been employed in the organic sector, he knew a lot of the ins and outs, he had done direct marketing, so he'd been experienced in many things, so he kind of knew what he would like to do. And when this opportunity arose, he goes, well, this isn't exactly what I was looking for, but boy, how often does an opportunity like this come along?
Right.
And so he jumped on the opportunity. But then the opportunity wasn't just there for an apple to pick. He had to come up with the financing. He had to work it out with the sellers. And he had 3 different types of financing to make this thing work.
How important is that, the financing and being creative?
It is the whole thing that has to come in, because we have a lot of people that are marketers, we have a lot of people that are producers, but can they manage the finances? If you can't make a profit and you can't find your ability to make money farming, you're not going to be able to pay your bills. There's someone that works with Farm Viability made the comment, he goes, he didn't really worry about the finances until he bought a farm and realized that he had his family's future mortgaged. And he said he had to start taking a look at finances a lot differently, and that was Richard Wiswell, who works with a lot of farmers to help them get started. And you have to understand the finances, because you have monthly payments that you have to make now. And if you take like John, he took over this operation, he had a workforce. He had to meet a payroll every week. And all of a sudden there gets to be a lot of responsibilities, and you're the decision maker. Not just working on the farm, you're the one that's responsible for all this. And so you need to really have a good handle on those finances. And the ability to pay bills as they come due is just so important for any type of business, whether it's a TV station or a dairy farm or a vegetable farm or General Motors.
Mm-hmm. And so what advice do you have for folks if they're thinking of the process, if they're older farmers thinking about what we're going to do for the future? What advice do you have for them?
Well, for the older generation, there are some matching services out there that try to match some younger generations with some older generations. But an older generation really has to come to the grip with things. Are they really ready to hand the operation over to somebody? Because all too often when these negotiations come in, the younger generation, they want to know just how soon they can start taking over the operation. And here's somebody, a farm family that's been operating this business maybe for 40, 50 years. And they may have taken it over from their previous parents. I mean, this is like their baby. This is their
part of the family.
Their whole life.
Yeah.
They just don't give it up too easily. And so, but yet at the same time, they know they need to be flexible, because if they're not flexible, any transfer of that business most likely will fail.
And so how can viewers find out more about these programs and proceedings?
We have a lot of this information at our website. That's www.uvm.edu/farming. farm transfer. And we have a number of videos there and some other information that is available for farmers. But the biggest thing is people have to be looking for opportunities. They don't just jump out in front of you at night like a moose or something like that. You really have to go and find them and prepare yourself. Training, make out networks, and networking with other farmers and with other producers and farmers markets. And you have to sometimes either make that opportunity work for you. And sometimes you have to ask the question of an older farmer, what would you consider maybe someone taking over your farm operation? And they go, well, I just never thought about it. And maybe the opportunity then can arise.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Judy.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Street.